Welcome to the Brandinc PR Podcast, where we dive deep into the stories and strategies of today's most impactful entrepreneurs, business leaders, and professionals. Whether you're building your brand, scaling your business, or just looking for inspiration, you're in the right place. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Brandinc PR Podcast. I'm your host, Brandi Sims, PR strategist, speaker, and your go-to guide for all things public relations, media, and branding. Today's episode is especially exciting if you're curious about the future of the creator economy and how it's shaping the next generation of communicators. Our guest here today is Bill Zimmerman, assistant teaching professor at the Donald P. Bellisario College of Communication at Penn State University. He's the author of the brand new textbook, Understanding the Creator Economy, Making Digital Media Work for You, and is actively building educational pathways for aspiring content creators and PR professionals alike. We're diving into how colleges are evolving to meet the moment, what lessons we can learn from student creators, and what the future holds for media, PR, and education. Bill, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Brandi. I'm excited to talk about this stuff, and I think you have made digital media work for you, right?
Yes.
You know, this podcast, your email, content is helping people start businesses, promote the businesses they already have. So I think the entrepreneurial side of this, the creative side, is what really gets me energized. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yes. Well, excited to have you. So let's get right into it. All right. So obviously, welcome to the show. To start, can you share a bit about your professional background and what led you to focus on specifically the creator economy?
Yeah, sure. I originally started out as a newspaper reporter. I went to Indiana University of Pennsylvania, got a journalism degree, and started working at the nearby paper there. And so I worked for about nine years in newspapers, and during that time was also trying to do some freelance magazine writing. This was in the 2000s, which was a terrible time to be trying to do such a thing. The pay was going off a cliff. I had a knack for writing for several publications that would be defunct in a few months.
Yeah.
But I early on, that was me enjoying making something and putting it out into the world. Now some of that was more creative than other things. Sometimes there were feature stories that I was writing where I felt very, very creative. Other times I was reporting on what happened at a borough council meeting. But I really enjoyed the freelance writing process of making a pitch to an editor and trying to develop that and then actually seeing it. There were times where I'd actually be at a supermarket or a gas station and see a magazine where I had an article in it. And that was pretty cool. And I think that was maybe the first thing that got me interested in what would later become the creator economy. I then moved on to work at Penn State University in their strategic communications office. So that's Penn State's main office for PR, marketing, and advertising. Started off as an associate editor doing writing, photography for the Penn State News website, and then would later on manage a lot of social media work for the university for its main accounts. I also had the opportunity to be an adjunct instructor in a journalism class that just sparked a love for teaching. Mm-hmm. And I also was able to get a master's degree while working full-time through the university's generous tuition discounts for employees. And in 2017, a lot of things kind of went my way. There was an opening and I was eventually, and there was a need for teaching about social media. And I was able to get hired as a lecturer. And now I'm an assistant teaching professor. So that's how I made my journey into teaching. While I was working in Penn State's social media office, I also was part of a short-lived series. Well, it lasted for a few years, a series on YouTube that we put together called This is Penn State, which was our answer to the Dirty Jobs program that was very popular in the day, with Mike Rowe, putting himself in these uncomfortable, dirty situations and shining a spotlight on people who don't always get the spotlight put on them. And that was the idea, showing all sorts of different sides of the university from the dairy barns to the ROTC program, to the theater program. And so I got to through my job, be a YouTuber, for a time, which was a lot of fun too. So I guess all that has kind of brought me to this point where I recognized that this was that this creator economy thing is not going away, that this is a future. This is the future. It is disrupting the way people entertain themselves, get the news, find community, and there are good and bad sides for all of that. But it is truly, transforming the way media is consumed. And I saw an opportunity, here and pitched an idea to a textbook publisher, and they jumped on it. It was a very informal conversation, and before I knew it, I had deadlines to hit, to have drafts done by. So it all moved very quickly. But I've been really energized over this last year and a half by having something that I feel like I'm really making my own. I could put a stamp on things and play a small role in kind of creating some uniformity around how the creator economy is taught in colleges and universities.
Yes. I mean, that's so incredible. Thank you for sharing this. And I'm just thinking of just how you started from your early days of writing a newspaper. You're doing the storytelling in and of itself, and then now you're teaching storytelling from the digital perspective. It's an incredible career trajectory, and such a phenomenal journey that's taking you to this point to be able to help others get to that point where they understand truly how this storytelling works within the creator economy. It's amazing. So,
Thank you.
speaking of creator economy, I know that's a buzzword now, but you've taken time to study and teach it in depth. How do you define the creator economy for students just entering the field?
Yeah, you're right. There's something gets thrown around a lot, and now and more we just assume that people know what the heck we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And I see it as individuals who have managed to build a digital brand of some sort that has built an audience that may or may not make money. I think I also did a podcast for about 4 years that did not make any money. It was very niche. It was focused on local entrepreneurship. But the thing I kept reminding myself so I didn't get too bummed was to measure the success in the opportunities it created and not in money or metrics, right? Because it was a total letdown on that front. But when it came to opportunities, I was meeting new people, was extending my network, I was creating a niche for myself in the college. So I think that's what I kind of see, that this creator economy is all these individuals who have managed to build digital brands and monetize it in some way, whether that's they're getting a share of the ad revenue that YouTube offers, whether they're getting paid by brands to create content on TikTok, or whether they are enhancing their own businesses, like you owning a PR firm, or somebody who's an accountant or a lawyer who has figured out that having a blog or having a YouTube channel or having a podcast is lead generation for them. So I guess that's my long-winded answer of what the creator economy is right now.
Yeah, no, but good answer. Very good answer. I like that. It definitely puts it into perspective of just kind of what that really has become and what it's evolving into. Because a lot of people don't really understand it. They see it. They see the headlines, especially because you see how much people are making on it, which in some cases are like multi-million. I don't know if it's hit billion, but I think as an economy, it's in the billions. So there's definitely a lot of money to be had. But I like that you mentioned that for you, it was more about the opportunities, those connections that were made, because people forget that. You may not be monetizing, but you may have gotten your first client off of a podcast interview that you did, or a podcast co-creator opportunity that you did. You can lead to more opportunities that go beyond just monetizing, that I think are incredibly important to know. And absolutely, they do matter. They absolutely matter. All right. So I know you mentioned a little bit earlier about what inspired you to write Understanding the Creator Economy. But who do you feel like you wrote it for? Was it aspiring creators? Was it educators? Was it PR pros? Or was it all of the above?
Yeah, so I wanted to create something for this is I'm not alone in this as being a faculty member at a college or university who is interested in this. I belong to Facebook groups of faculty teaching social media classes, and there's a lot of them have been incorporating this sort of thing into their class for years. So I did want to create something that would be useful for faculty and programs that are recognizing that they need to have some programming on this. That this is significantly changing the future of PR marketing and advertising. As we, in PR classes, we look at PRSA, Silver Anvil case studies. More and more, almost everyone has a tiny piece of it that's focused on working with creators and influencers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, first and foremost, I really believe that the textbook was going to have value and be useful beyond just my class. Now, I don't know if this was the right or wrong strategy here, but I wanted to create a textbook that would be useful for an aspiring creator and useful for that student who finds this interesting but has no interest being in front of the camera or doing this sort of thing, but would find it interesting to be that liaison between a brand, an agency,
Yes.
and content creators too. So, creating something that would be useful for anyone who's about to be a future professional in public relations, but also something for those students who are interested in building a brand. And then I also think there's just little pieces of it too that are just speak to content creation and how, that could inform a brand's strategy as well for its own, platforms.
Yes, yes. So you essentially checked a lot of boxes, is what that sounds like. But they're important boxes
Yeah, hopefully
because,
not too many.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But I mean, it's important boxes though, because you have that individual, maybe they want to be in front of the camera, they want to be a content creator. This is going to help them. But also, that student that is an aspiring or working on becoming a PR professional, you need to know that information too, because you're going to be representing clients that are doing that type of work and you need to understand their language. So I think
for
you
sure.
definitely check a lot of boxes when you expand it from that perspective of this is for that content creator, but also for that person that's going to be dealing with it. And let's be real, with how things in digital media has become over even in the last 10 years, it's going to be a prominent, important thing that these kids, sorry, anybody that's younger than me, I'm like these kids, these students,
Yeah, I
they
get it.
they need to know this because now
Yeah,
it's not a bonus or, oh, good, this. So, and this is just extra. No, like you actually need this because it's essential to your job because you're dealing with digital media in some way, shape, or form in any role that you take if you continue to be a PR professional right now.
for
Absolutely.
sure.
So relevant.
Yeah, and I think too, we can make assumptions that these kids just all want to be creators. The headlines make us feel like that every single young person out there is aspiring to be a YouTuber or
Yeah.
Twitch streamer. And yes, there's a lot of them. More than ever, people are seeing that as a potential career option. But there's also a lot of students who just don't recognize that
Yep.
they don't want to get on that content creator hamster wheel, don't want to be that public, with things, don't want to deal with nasty comments and all that. Those are all relevant reasons to not want to do it too. But also they may change their mind in the future. One of the favorite stats I came along that I love talking about is Adobe did a survey where they put the average age of a content creator at 40, which I just love
What?
because I think that side of this isn't talked about so much,
Mm,
that more and more people are older generations now are getting on watching YouTube more on their connected televisions.
nice.
There are content creators catering to all sorts of interests and demographics. And to me, that I just think that's one of the most exciting things that's happening right now.
Yes, it is. It is. It truly is. And it certainly gives us a little bit more perspective of what the content creator really looks like today. It's not the assumed, it's all the young whippersnappers. No, it's actually a lot of folks that are in that and fall within that category. So this textbook definitely is going to apply to so many and be so impactful in that capacity. So speaking of the textbook, let's get inside the textbook. So, your book breaks down how digital media can work for individuals. What are some of the key themes or chapters that students really resonate with?
Yeah, so we've used it in classes a few times here, and some of the things I think are special about the book is for those who do want to start some sort of content venture, and that's the terminology I've landed on, and that's not something I coined, but I like that, a content venture where you're trying to think strategically, and you are thinking about what a money making avenue could look like. So there's lots of focus on creating a niche that, yes, there are people out there who are attractive enough, skilled enough, in a profession, uh, rich, have lifestyles where they just have to pretty much press record, right, and put it out there, and it's going to find an audience. The vast majority of people need to find a niche, right? They need to specialize. They need to think of something where they can that they have a passion for, that they would happily continue to make content in that space, even if it's the growth is slow. So finding that niche, something that you can, narrow your focus on. And at first you may feel like you're limiting yourself, but in the long run, you're actually creating more opportunities for yourself, a higher likelihood that maybe you'll find an audience. So that's a big one. Talking about building, nurturing a community instead of building an audience. The tactics you can do to try to make your audience feel more included. There's a growing expectation for fans of creators that they can play a role in shaping the future of that person's content, right? That they could at least throw out ideas for future content, or maybe see their something they recorded featured in that person's future content, or send a question to a podcast host and hear it read and answered on air in the future. So there's that aspect of it, and then also trying to talk a whole chapter on ethics. And starting first and foremost with disclosures, that there's lots of creators who aren't properly disclosing that what they are putting out there is an ad that it's the product of either being paid or being given something for free from a brand. So I think there's lots of issues there that I hope this textbook will try to get ahead of, because I think it's cliche. There's still lots of Wild West aspects of this, and there's lots of people not following the right steps. There's been some high profile lawsuits, class action suits against some brands who were accused of having they were accused of their creators not properly disclosing. So I love having examples like that to show the students, say, hey, this is real, and I just saw there was another case of one of the big music companies or record labels or publishing houses, also filing lawsuits against a brand that was frequently using copywritten music, popular music, and its TikToks, which we see that all the time, right? But is not right. If you were making any money from that channel, you were regulated or relegated to using that library of royalty-free music that may sound okay, but isn't as cool as putting a chart-topping song in your video. So there's a lot there, and it's I think a younger generation has grown up thinking that kind of everything's up for grabs, right? If it's available online, and it is all very confusing, right? There's whole platforms built around sharing others' posts and commenting on it and remixing it. So that's another thing, like really trying to say, hey, this is that. I got to pour cold water on some of this stuff and do my professor duty, and talk about all this ethical stuff that's really important, and I don't think a lot of creators want to think about.
No, you're exactly right. And it's so important too. Like you have to talk about the ethical side of this, because there is a big piece of this that we don't consider, we don't think about. And the more lawsuits come out, I think that's kind of lighting a fire under people to take it seriously and really look into this. From the music companies that you mentioned to the brands, there's so many. Goodness, I even saw one. It was a multi-million-dollar lawsuit for Kendall Jenner because she didn't disclose that she had been paid to shout out a product, and it's like, that's a no. They're on you. So you've touched on so many really important key themes here that the chapters are really breaking down, and you're so spot on in that these are things that they really need to know. So it was very, very mindful and cognizant that you included this, because it's something that isn't really shared, isn't really talked about. We just like the fun stuff, Bill. We just like the fun stuff. Just create the fun dancing videos and shout out the brand that sent you a mug.
You get a break for a little bit of escapism, right?
Yes, it is. But we got to follow the rules now. It's the wild, wild west, but I think they're slowly starting to get it. And those rules are starting to apply, and we've got to follow those, and we've got to do so ethically. So happy that you included that and really shared more on that one. So can you share a standout example or a success story of a student creator who applied the lessons that they learned from this course?
I have not seen that executed yet, and that is my hope. I can't wait for that day where somebody takes this course and maybe comes back a few semesters later or a few years later and says they've used some of these lessons. So that has not happened yet. But I'm in, excited, hopeful that will happen. But I have had the benefit of getting to talk to students outside of my classes who have managed to build impressive content creator brands.
Yes.
People, some of them who started in high school, who have found lots of success without any formal education on this. It was just hard work and persistence and a lot of trial and error,
Yep.
and also them having some natural talents and gifts for storytelling and
Yeah.
being on camera. But several years ago started tapping into these students and forming a content creator panel in my digital PR class. So that was kind of the last week of class. I would bring these students in and they would talk. But one of the students I would probably give the biggest shout out to is named Justin Lusner. And he was a dynamo of a student who took advantage of every opportunity at Penn State, including, most interestingly, taking advantage of Penn State's Business Accelerator program, which is available to students, faculty, people in the community. And they are starting to see content creators as entrepreneurs that could write a business plan, and he took advantage of that money and mentorship available in that program. Now, he already had a lot of success before that, but he's just really jumped on every opportunity. He created a student org here dedicated to student content creators. And his whole thing was about, he wanted to be Gen Z's ESPN.
Yes.
So changing how sports highlights are presented to a younger generation. And he was mainly doing that through TikTok, Instagram Reels. Started off, with taking, highlight clips from the NBA, and then growing to do a lot more, personal on the street type of things and contests and stunts and other things. And he has just really taken that to the next level. He is still here in town, even after graduation, and is making a run at this full time. Nice. So his story was really interesting. Early on, I got to meet a student, Sydney Asensio, who has a YouTube channel called Sid's Vids. That was a like college student lifestyle that she grew into, a 6-figure subscriber base on YouTube. So she was the first high level content creator on campus who came to my class to talk. But I have not. There hasn't been a homegrown creator out of my course and textbook just yet. But I've been getting to meet these student creators has just been also inspiring. And I don't think I would have done this if I didn't get to meet some of them and be so excited and inspired by what they were doing.
Well, I mean, hey, this is still hot off the press, right? So it's still one of those that it's growing, it's evolving, and it's something that's really newly available. So I imagine probably in this next, I was going to say a year, but the way time works with news and information, it'll probably be in a matter of months, even weeks. You'll likely have that story in there that somebody's willing to share and just be like, hey, I applied all of the practices and I applied all of the lessons that were learned here, and look what I was able to do. I think it's on the horizon for you. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm encouraged.
Yes.
And right now the textbook has been kind of shoehorned into my digital PR course, which focuses heavily on social media.
Yeah.
But I'm in the process of building a course that's essentially going to be like Creator Economy 101,
Gotcha.
where it'll be like a smaller group of students. Yeah. This textbook will be integrated into a more seamless way, and we'll take them week by week into some of these steps of building an online brand. So that's where I really think we'll start to see some of these good results, from student creators.
Yeah, no, awesome. And that being said, I'm just thinking of your content venture term. You should probably trademark that. That's such a good, that's a good term. That could be.
Yeah. I'm not sure if some of the other, the people who have put that out there may have already jumped on that. Yeah. But it's funny. I mean, you do have to kind of think that way right now, right? When you're talking about, a space that's emerging, right? Yep. What can be your special angle, here?
I'm just saying it could be your new bread and butter. I'm just saying, or additional bread and butter, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So what's one misconception you've seen students or even PR professionals have about becoming a content creator?
Well, I think the big one is that it's easy. I think that's first and foremost. Yeah. And if you would talk to any creator, you would see that they're just a vlogger, just how much editing they have to do would probably turn off most people from wanting to go down that route,
Yeah.
right? I think that's the big part. But also just the pre-planning involved, whether that's writing a script or, just getting somebody to come and hold a camera for you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those things. And I think also just the anxiety that can come from it, right? Of calling attention to yourself by
Yes.
talking to a camera out and talking to your phone out in public, or just the comments that you are going to be inviting after putting this out in the world. So I think that's all out there. And you alluded to this earlier, but the people who are making a lot of money, they are being celebrated constantly. Yeah. Headlines, social content, and also a lot of the times when we're reading about these sorts of things, there hasn't been a lot of steps taken to actually verify somebody is making as much as they're saying, right? Yeah. Somebody may share a screenshot of something, but who knows if that's actually there. It's also murky. But I've seen some studies recently that have put it as low as 4% or 2%, that 2% of content creators are making more than $100,000. If we kind of use that as the yardstick of a good living, good full-time living, there's only a small few who can make that much, right now. Now that doesn't mean that there's some people making some great side hustle cash. Yeah. There's some people supplementing their income in really interesting ways. Yeah. But there's not a lot of people getting rich from it. Not even a lot of people making enough to make this their full-time gig. Yeah. So I think those are probably some of the biggest misconceptions.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you spoke on that, because that was actually something that I spoke with a colleague about the other day, and just talking about how the monetization programs, they've been changing. Like, I've seen terms and conditions being updated with Meta. I've seen some of those same changes with TikTok. But ultimately, when you think about it, it's like, if everyone is on these social media platforms, we all can't get paid, and we all can't get paid the same amount. So I'm so glad that you had that percentage, because I was kind of curious, like, okay, so of those, who's actually rolling in the dough? Because I don't think it's in the way that people think, that if you have good, consistent content, not knocking the content, I'm sure it's great, and you're getting even hundreds of thousands of views. I've seen some of those folks say, I made $100 from that post, or less than $100. So I was like really thinking, like, okay, so of those people, who are actually really getting it? Because it doesn't seem as widespread as it's implied, that everyone has access to the significant benefits of monetization on these platforms.
Sure. Yeah. And, it's some of it does seem, some of the surveys and reports I've read, brand deals are where people are making the most money, but that could be all over the place. Yeah. It can be inconsistent. It can be, a really great payday. It could also be very small, in some of those studies, reports done on that as well, you're talking about, $100, $200, payouts, but also the people at the top can make $500,000 for one post. So yeah, there's a lot of murkiness, a lot of confusion, but people are figuring out how to make money in different ways. And like you said, that will constantly change. These creator programs come and go. It's their answer sometimes to trying to stave off competition or embrace a new feature. We had a student here at Penn State, Katie Feeney, who's just a top level content creator. And, she was raking in the money early on from Snapchat's creator program, and got a lot of publicity for that, was doing a lot of media for it. That paid off really well for her. But also great timing too. She had an excellent presence. She was creating content that people wanted to see. But she also came along at a time where Snapchat was really trying to plant its flag and get people really excited about making content. And it really worked out well for her.
Yeah. So basically what we've learned here is you got to strike while the iron is hot. That's how a lot of those content creators were able to capitalize at the time that they did. And
sure. Yeah. A lot of, not to downplay the hard work involved, but there's a lot of luck and timing.
Yeah.
Right. That
makes a difference.
Works here. Yeah.
100%. Okay. So let's switch gears and talk a little bit more about, education meeting industry. So tell us more about the new content creator certificate program. How does it work, and what skills are students really walking away from, or with, I should say?
Yeah, this should probably get launch in 2026.
Nice.
And the way I designed it was having like an introductory content creator course, and the name has been changed multiple times, and it is escaping me right now what we landed on.
Yeah.
I'll just call it Creator Economy 101 right now.
Yeah.
There's that introductory course, but then our college has already so many great courses existing
Yeah.
that focused on content creator skills. So that's, podcasting courses, video production, writing for the web. So the plan is to have this creator certificate where students, take this introductory course, take 2 or 3 of these skills courses in whatever kind of area they are most interested. And then it'll have a capstone course that's really going to be heavily focused on them actually executing an idea that they maybe have been developing over several semesters, and then actually putting it out into the world and trying different strategies to grow it, and then evaluating the performance. So that's kind of how it's set up here. I think we landed on it'll be about 13 credits. And those who aren't in higher ed, think of a certificate, then a minor, then a major, if we want to kind of put it in a hierarchy there.
Yes.
So I'm really excited about this. And then also, these courses will be there for students who don't decide to pursue the certificate either.
Yes.
They can still take this, creator economy basics course to get a start on this and see if they want to do the certificate.
Nice, nice. The hands-on experience makes such a difference. And that's something that I know is going to impact them so much, to be able to really do it in real time and put a plan together. Love, love, love that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you also co-direct a summer camp for high schoolers that is focused on content creation. What are some of those takeaways or surprising trends you've observed from working with that young of a group?
Yeah, that we're preparing for our 3rd version of that here in a few weeks. And I'll give a shout out to my co-director, Jenna Spinelli, who's a full-time communications professional here at Penn State and also an adjunct. And several years ago, she launched a 1-credit online course focused on content creators. So she really got the ball rolling in this area at Penn State. But the course is, it's still evolving. We're still figuring out the best way, but we've landed on this, put these students through lots of hands-on experience. And for the students who are really gung-ho and involved with it, they like getting out in front of things, talking to people. They're not super timid, about being on camera, talking on camera.
Yeah.
So that's all fun to see. And we have the benefit of being on a college campus right now that's really pretty, and also just has so much, going on campus and in downtown. We organized the summer camp with one of our biggest community events called Arts Fest this lasts several days. And that provides lots of content opportunities where they can go. And one of the early things happening is a student art cell. So young people, young students, some as young as elementary age, selling things that they have made on the street. So we always have our campers out there talking to them, interviewing them, putting together little short form, video packages. So that part is exciting to see, just them recognize the chance to spotlight others, with their content. They kind of realize that, yes, this can be helpful if you want to build that personal brand, but also it can be really fun when you make content and give others the spotlight.
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing, and with this younger group too. And I love that you made mention of the fact that they're not timid. They're ready to get on the camera. We've got this aesthetically pleasing campus to work with. It sounds like all of the stars are aligning up for you perfectly to make this something that's super successful and has been successful, and really teaching them about how content creation really works and having them go through the motion in the process of building it themselves. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I'd say with that excitement too, I try to think more about how to look at this with clear eyes, right?
Yeah.
And how to not ignore that, there could be a dark side to this, that
Yeah.
for just many people who find community, others can find, the all the negativity on there just overwhelming.
Yeah.
And we're all struggling with our own phone addictions and these sorts of things. So yeah, and also just trying to really keep hammering home the reality of what it's like to be a content creator.
Truly.
When we wrap up our camp, the lame joke that I always make to the parents is like, hey, we just didn't sit your kid in a corner and let them scroll TikTok on their phone. We actually had them talking to them about the
Yeah.
career opportunities and then the business value and the marketing and PR value of social media. So yeah, I'm always trying to strike that balance because I'm naturally upbeat and look at the bright side of all this,
Yeah.
but I also need to keep bringing in things like the ethics side
Yes.
and talk about some of the wellness angles of this as well, and how creators deal with the pressure, and how there's been some very high profile creators who just said, hey, I've been doing this for too long, I'm done, I need a break,
Yeah.
and try and making sure that those stories get
Yeah.
told too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, from a PR perspective, what do you think future pros need to understand about working with creators, especially as brand collaborations become more strategic?
Sure. Yeah, and I would love to get your side on this too, because that's something as a PR professor I've been trying to do more of, is saying, yes, influencer marketing is the terminology that we know and gets used a lot, but I think it's becoming so much bigger than that, and we're seeing some very savvy PR use of creators. So, for example, Lowe's just announced a creator program. So this is a program where, and we can imagine how many DIY content creators there are out there
Yes.
on TikTok and YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Lowe's has claimed that they have 17,000 people already signed up for this. And through this creator program, small creators can earn money through affiliate links that they share and by driving people to make purchases on the Lowe's website. And it can also establish, brand deals where Lowe's is just paying creators for content. When they put this out, they first off announced Mr. Beast as their very first member of their creator program. And it would, at first I kind of scratched my head and be like, yeah, very creative. Pick the biggest content creator in the world. But
Yes.
when you think about it, there's lots of plywood and paint and all sorts of things
Yep.
that are needed to make his big, stunts happen.
Pages and
So
all that.
yeah, so it makes sense. And he had a dedicated storefront where Lowe's is selling all sorts of things, including, creator kits with lights and
Oh, wow.
microphones and all that.
Yeah.
And then also this last week, Forbes just announced their top 50 creator lists of 2025.
Yep. I did see that. Yep.
Did
Yep.
you recognize who was kind of the sponsored presenter with that on their website?
Oh, yep. Yep. And
It was
my
Lowe's.
PR mind was just like
Yeah.
immediately, oh, I see the play. I see the
Yeah.
play now. Okay, gotcha.
So like, wow, they
Yeah.
and that really shows you a lot of strategic planning, right?
Huh.
From a PR standpoint.
Yeah.
How can we make the biggest splash as we as a brand make inroads in the creator economy? So good on Lowe's, right there.
Yep.
So yeah, for me, I think you'll probably see more brands, rather than having that stale quote from a CEO in your news release,
Yeah.
have a quote from your top content creator partner as that new campaign is being announced. Seeing lots of brands just like Lowe's thinking about timing,
Yeah.
very strategically. That new product is in stores. That creator is going to put out that video showcasing it that day. Or you're going to use your creators a month down the line just to kind of re-energize the conversation around a new initiative that your brand launched. You can see, brands invite content creators to, internal events and to talk to staff and put on workshops
Mhm.
and contribute something to an annual report. So I've been trying to create a list of, these more PR tactics that are associated with content creators. So I'd be curious if you're seeing other things out there that feel more like PR than marketing when it comes to influencers.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely, definitely. No, from what I've been able to observe, I definitely think it gives more PR than it does the marketing. When I see some of the collaborations that'll take place, like even for example, I think I talked about this in a couple other episodes where Marvel, and I'm a comic book nerd, complete comic book nerd. And when Deadpool came out with the collaboration with Wolverine, I saw that Heinz did a collaboration with them. So it was ketchup and mustard because the red and the yellow. And
Yeah.
then I saw another brand collaborate, and several really brand collaborations. That was one that stuck out. But also when Wicked released, and I saw they collaborated with a lot of beauty brands and all these and all of this other stuff. And I was looking at it from just the strategic standpoint and seeing, okay, I see what you guys did there and how to make those connections that go beyond just the typical, we just pay a content creator to just do a post and that's it. I feel like those days are slowly going away. They're still there because there's still businesses and brands that think that, you just throw money at it and then that'll fix the problem. It's like, no, you have to make it make sense. You have to be strategic. And I think that there's some that still haven't got on it. Others, though, have. They've understood like it's not enough just to have someone post. And it's not even enough for them to have millions of followers because we know now that there's bots and you can buy that. So we need to know important things. And this is something I talk about often, not only with clients, but also when I'm doing panels and stuff like that on this particular topic. It's important that when you're deciding on a content creator to work with your brand or your client's brand, that you one request those insights, meaning I want to see your engagement. I want to see your click through rate. I want to see like followers. We can already see that. We can see that. But I want to see what the engagement really looks like. And what is your demographic? Who are the people that are on your platform? And compare that to our brand vision, our values, our mission, and our goals, our PR goals specifically. Does it align with that? And if it doesn't, we should be weeding them out. There's too many brands that are just partnering for the sake of partnering, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. And it's not strategic. So I think that what future pros really need to understand and learn that this is about strategy. Okay. This is about strategy. And there is 100% a PR element to it too, because it's about being seen. It's about the word of mouth. It's not enough just to have somebody with 100,000 followers posting about you. If nobody's clicking through, nobody's really talking about you. And then also you have to consider that maybe those followers aren't real followers. And I think that's messed up a lot of brands too. And honestly, given them like a bad taste in their mouths when it comes to hearing about influencers and content creators and brand partnerships. They think it's a hustle. It's not a hustle. People have made it a hustle, but you don't have to be if you ask the right questions. Got to be more strategic with it. So,
No,
but
I
that's at
love
least what
that.
I've observed.
Yeah. And I think of that, just the continuation of that too, is that, yeah, you're being strategic and you're also thinking, and with that, your strategic thinking is more long-term, right?
Yep.
And, and that includes, some of these brand agreements now creating the opportunity for the brand to use that content in multiple ways. And
Yep.
this can be controversial. A creator may not like it, but they may have, that video could then be repurposed in a television ad. The still images could be used on your website to promote a product. Brands are thinking, more than just that one-off content collaboration. They're thinking, yeah, how can I take the materials that this very savvy creator made and use it to our advantage in the future?
Yep.
Brands starting to make sure that those agreements include, hey, after you do this, you can't reach an agreement with one of our competitors for at least 90 days. Also thinking in that regard too. So yeah, it's to a creator's benefit and a brand's benefit if they can get to a point where there's a mutually beneficial situation that can be long term, that can go over several years even.
Yes, yes. So true, so true. So I'm excited to see how this continues to evolve, but definitely when I look at the brand partnerships, I'm always just looking at it and just analyzing, okay, I see what you did there. And then this one wasn't really a good one, but oh, well, didn't get any engagement. That lets us know everything we need to know. But I sit there and I'll just analyze, okay, what worked well with this and what didn't, and just apply, those tactics and those same strategies, even dealing with my own clients. Okay, this was a really fun one. And just speaking again of the Marvel one, I thought that was such a neat collaboration that no one would have guessed. We expect the content creators, we expect the celebs, right? But we don't expect like basic things like ketchup and mustard It's the colors, they match. It's cute. It's quirky, right? So it's those
Yeah, those are the campaigns I like looking at the most, right? These ones that use creators and use, or use traditional media relations and still and come up with interesting new products to put on the shelves. Those are the most fun campaigns to read about. Yeah, content creators are changing the game, but a campaign still has to have a lot of other, moving parts,
yeah.
all working towards the same objective.
100%. Yes, yes. Okay, so how should agencies and brands rethink their partnerships with creators through the lens of education and long-term relationship building?
Yeah, and that's something, I had the benefit of going to a conference called the Creator Economy Live, where I got to see some of these people doing these roles now at agencies and brands. And yeah, there's over the last few years, whole positions created. Some of these are only teams of one, but employees who are all focused on figuring this out and making good brand relationships. I think it's the sort of things you talked about at first, right? Doing the necessary research to make sure that you're working with the right creators from the jump, right? That you're not having your judgment clouded by their big followings.
Yeah.
And a lot of the data out there shows that creators with smaller followings have more engagement, anyway. So I think that's where it starts, really doing the legwork and making sure that you're finding the right people to begin with. And yeah, thinking about and trying to imagine what a long-term relationship could look like.
Yep. Yep.
That content, that piece of sponsored content could evolve into that person maybe doing a social media takeover for your brand in the
Yep.
future, or even making content, in-house without even putting their face out there, just lending their expertise on video editing, to make your own branded content better. I've heard situations where that has happened.
Yep.
There's some brands who have hired in-house content creators, whether as contractors or as full-time employees. I think that's a really interesting strategy. One of the ones that really stood out was Nerf started working with a TikToker who just made fantastic content around Nerf guns. And,
Oh,
that person was the face then of their entire TikTok. That was
yeah.
theirs to run with. So I thought that was a very forward thinking move on Nerf's part. And we're also seeing, I forget what brand it was, brands looking to make their employees more of the face of their social
Ah,
content, and
yeah.
basically empowering them to be
Yeah.
content creators, working on behalf of the brand. So I think that's, really brands, the best, most forward thinking brands and agencies are opening up their minds to all that this could be. And it could be so much more than just paying a celebrity for one post.
Exactly, exactly. Oh, I love that. I love that so much. It definitely is one of those that it will make people rethink, really rethink about how they're partnering and how they're aligning with content creators, because I think they add so much value. But we have to stop looking at it as just, I checked the box, I did the thing, look, I collaborated, and not really thinking of it strategically and how it can really impact and benefit their brands and building that awareness. And again, this is all PR. Like, that's what I love about it. It's all PR, it's all word of mouth, and not knocking our marketing guys and girls and advertising people, but we're very different. Like, our approaches are different in how we reach our ultimate result, right? We look at it from a completely different lens, and I think it does make a big difference when you're dealing with those partnerships and the importance of that visibility. That's what it all comes down to. That, and of course the long-term relationship building that you can have with content creators. Goodness, I think back of Progressive and Flow, and how that became a long-term partnership when and I want to say she did an article with the New York Times talking about her story, but had no idea that was she was formerly an actress. I think she did
Yeah.
Broadway, and she just started doing these videos at just kind of early on, and then it just kind of evolved into this long-term theme, and now she is, recognizable for the brand. I mean, that's the type of partnerships that we're looking at, and why we position and build these strategically in that way so that you get that long-term investment there.
In the
Absolutely.
textbook, I included Jake from State Farm, which is another very similar situation. This is an actor who landed this commercial, and now State Farm is they won a Shorty Award for their strategy around basically making him a content creator. Recognizing that Jake can communicate with people on TikTok in ways that the brand can't,
Okay.
and why not give him the keys to this and let him run with it and make all sorts of interesting content and collaborate with top content creators. So I think that's such an interesting approach to this too, changing that dynamic of these brand mascots, who are out there. And also something, I was reminded of a survey that I read that said the majority of content creators report getting zero feedback from the brands they work with. And that right there just seems like such a missed opportunity.
Wow.
And maybe I'm downplaying just how busy these people are. But I just couldn't imagine, what a missed opportunity there to just not even follow up and say, hey, your video drove this many visits to our website, or, or just something, or, hey, we really like this, or, this was, that's a missed opportunity to build a long-term relationship that could pay off in bigger ways in the future. So that tells me there's, yes, we see there's a ton of creativity happening and some brands and agencies doing great things.
Yeah.
But there's still probably some work that needs to be done to really take this to the next level.
100%.
But I guess that's an academic trying to speak on this. And
I think that's
I haven't worked in these offices either, but that's just what I'm kind of seeing.
Yeah, no, I think that's super, super insightful and very helpful. And it's certainly something that there does need to be more education about this, because there's not enough, there's not enough information that is out there. So, with you creating this textbook and creating this space, like you are, sir, an innovator, in that you're leading
Thank you.
the charge of education. No, you're so welcome. Like this is such a complex area that there's a lot of caveats, there's a lot of aspects to this that people really, really need this information. I wouldn't even say just PR professionals or those in the media space, but just entrepreneurs in general need this information, because at some point in time, with the way things are moving, they're going to be dealing with the content creator in some way or shape or form if they want to continue to have a sustainable and successful business. They're going to need to. And so having something like this is such a resource and so timely and relevant that I'm as excited, what's going to be next? What's the next book? As you're kind of kicking this thing off and really innovating more education around this.
Yeah, it's really it's exciting, and right now, there's the VidCon conference is happening in Cannes, France right now. They have started to embrace having creators there at the Cannes Lion Festival. So this is just everywhere I look. There's articles and content right now about these major industry events that are really putting this sort of work on a high pedestal.
Yes, 100%. Okay, so looking ahead, where do you see the creator economy over the next 5 years, and how do you think education is going to continue to evolve with it?
Wow, yeah, I struggle to make make predictions, and it'll probably be woefully off. I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say it's going to keep getting bigger, right? I think there's certainly possibilities that people will have some influencer and creator fatigue.
Yeah.
If they're not careful, if people are continuing to kind of play fast and loose with disclosures, I think people will get fed up with that. But I think as long as a lot of content creators start to just kind of respect their audiences and what they want and are committed to giving them value, it'll still stay strong and keep growing. But I do expect, probably big changes in education around this sort of thing. Just for example, in our college, we have a class, digital PR. Like, how long does that digital piece stay in that course title, right? Till we get to the point where just the vast majority of PR is digital, and that's just, I don't even know what the new name of it would be, but there's lots of things being, being debated, right? And even just what's best for a college to refer to these classes. Is it strategic communications? Is it public relations? What is the one that is the most accurate description of what's happening and also entices students to select that major? But yeah, I imagine this this just to be a bigger and bigger piece of education, for journalism classes to touch on this, because that's the reality for a working journalist right now, is that they have their own social media, and that they're telling stories in all sorts of different mediums. Our film studies classes are going to, I was just reading about a YouTuber who's just got connected with a major Hollywood studio to make, a movie related to a horror focused YouTube series that he had put out. So that's happening. So this is going to kind of creep into all the different areas of different majors that we offer in our college. And I imagine that would happen at every place with a college of communications.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. It's going to be a game changer for sure. And we're just seeing just the early instances of what this is going to look like moving forward. All right. So if you could give one piece of advice to a student or a PR pro who wants to thrive in this space, what would it be?
I think just recognize that there is a ton of information out there, and from the platforms themselves, they're regularly putting out reports that are giving us little glimpses into how these platforms see their brand, how the type of content they're prioritizing, the type of experience they want to make for users. So I would say, just remember this, there is so much out there to help shape your understanding of this. And it's free. These reports from YouTube, from TikTok. One of my favorites is one that Pinterest puts out every year, where they try to spot upcoming trends in fashion and food and design based on hashtags that have just kind of exploded in growth over the last year. So there are so many fun reports that can help you kind of better understand just what's happening on the internet beyond just with content creators. So I think just creating that kind of media diet is a good place to start. Have podcasts, follow some of this. I'm starting to see some really cool, breakdowns on Reels and TikToks where people are like talking about a new campaign, or what did Nike do wrong with this, or what did Nike do right with this campaign. And so like people are making really cool content that's good professional development, right? And can help you better understand what's happening. So just sign up so that you receive these reports as soon as they're available. And then so many platforms like Hootsuite and HubSpot and Cision are all putting out really interesting reports of compiling data and surveys. There's just so much out there. My head kind of spins, and it's sometimes very tough to keep up with and figure out what should be incorporated in class and what shouldn't be.
Yeah. So the main thing is you need to boost your digital inventory, but find some balance in there that makes sense, so you're not going crazy by just the overwhelming amount of information that's being shared.
Yeah, just create some quiet space to reflect on what you just read and think about how you may put it into action.
There you go. I love that. Well, that's a perfect segue to wrap things up. Bill, thank you so much for sharing your insight and passion for shaping the next generation of digital storytellers. It's clear that your work is not just timely, but necessary as we continue to navigate this ever-changing media landscape. So, Bill, how can folks get in contact with you, and how can they get your book?
Yeah, so I'm easily reachable on LinkedIn. That's probably maybe the best place to go. And the book is available through Kendall Hunt is the publisher. So if you search for my name, Bill Zimmerman, and Kendall Hunt, you'll find it. And also I'll be sure to share the link with you, Brandi. And faculty can it's an ebook right now with the possibility maybe someday in the future, hopefully it'll get printed in a physical copy. But faculty can request a review copy as well. So if a faculty member wants to consider this for using in their class, they can get it for free to look it over. So those would be, contact me on LinkedIn, and you could find the book easily with the link I'll give you for the show notes.
Sounds good. So for our listeners, be sure to check out Understanding the Creator Economy, now available through Kendall Hunt, and stay tuned for updates on Penn State's new Content Creator Certificate program that Mr. Bill here is leading. We'll drop all of the links in the show notes, so don't worry about it. We got your back, okay? So if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow creative or comms pro who needs to hear this. Until next time, keep building your brand with purpose and power. Thank you for listening to the Brandinc PR Podcast. And thank you, Bill, for being here.
Thanks, Brandi. I really enjoyed this. And as you're seeing some really cool campaigns that incorporate creators, please send them my way.
Absolutely, will do.